Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
But once, you go with fear and trembling. I'm just telling you. I mean, we do it, but we do it trusting and trembling. Trusting and trembling. I mean, even to this day, God will tell me to do something, and I'm still doing it trusting and trembling. Anybody know what I'm talking about when God talks to you about something? You don't have proof. You can't really prove it to anybody, but you know that God has dropped something in your spirit. You're feeling this thing, and you go trusting and trembling at the same time. You don't let your fear stop you. Courage is not doing it in the absence of fear. It's doing it right in the presence of fear. It's saying that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'm walking through it, though. Yea, though I walk through it, I will fear no evil. But I'm walking through it. I'm in a valley where I could die. This could be the death of my career. This could be the death of my reputation. This could be my death. But I'm walking through it. I'm scared. I'm trusting and trembling. I'm stepping out, God. I don't fully know 100%, but I really have a leading. I really believe strongly in my spirit that this is you, God. I'm stepping out. God says, you go and I'll go with your mouth. You go and I will go with your mouth. Touch your neighbor again and say, step out. You will be surprised what great things will happen when you get ready to step out. Here's a question that I want you to ponder. Why should we take action and step out? Why? You know why? Because nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody else is going to live for you. Nobody can eat for you. Nobody can work out for you. Nobody can go to the bathroom for you. Touch yourself and say, if it's going to be, it's up to me. You know what the Bible says? Joshua 1:8. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. And then you shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall have good success. Now, if it is God alone who makes you successful, why doesn't he do it to all of his children? It's because your decision has something to do with it. He says, you do this, and then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Touch yourself again and say, if it's going to be, it's up to me. Nobody else is going to live this for you. Your mama can't live this for you. Your daddy cannot live this for you. Every tub has got to sit on its own bottom. And so you've got to be able to do this thing yourself. The fact is that if there's anything in the world that is worth doing, we must not stand back shivering, shrinking back from the cold and the danger possibly there, but we've got to just jump in and paddle like crazy. You don't have the luxury of doing years and years of research and consulting with family and friends so long and calculating all of the risk and dotting every I and crossing every T that you wake up one day and you're 75 years old and you realize that you don't have any more time to even follow the advice that you've been gathering over the years. J.H. Newman said, fear not that thy life shall come to an end, but rather that it shall never have a beginning. If you're going to fear anything, that's what you ought to fear. Not that your life shall come to an end, but fear that it shall never have a beginning. It was A.C. Benson who says that the worst sorrows in life are not those in their losses and misfortunes, but in its fears. Your greatest losses come because of your fears. And if you really want something major to happen to you in your life, I want to give you 7 simple steps to use. Number 1, decide exactly what you want. Decide exactly what you want. In other words, be specific, because your mind cannot pursue a general goal. You have to have specificity. You can't just go after generality. I mean, a man can't just say, I want a woman, and he just goes after any woman. It doesn't know which direction to go. The will can only be engaged when it has something specific that it is going toward. You can't just have a general will. If somebody sends you into the restaurant, they just say, oh, just get me something to eat. I mean, what do you want? You want chitlins? You want oxtails? You want fried chicken? You want tofu? I mean, what do you want? I mean, there are a lot of options that are out there. So be specific. Decide exactly what it is that you want. Do you know that that's half the problem? Is that we've got people shooting and they've never taken time to aim. And until you aim, and the reason that they don't aim is because they haven't located their target, because they don't know who they are. And it's not until you have an identity of who you are that you understand something about your destination. You wonder whether it matters where you've come from. Oh yes, they are connected. If you didn't know it, they are connected. God is the Alpha and the Omega. See, you have to start with God. Did you know that we came out of God? In the beginning. See, God started this thing, and it's not finished until you get back to Him. When we come into the earth and God will call us to our life mission, He calls us to it. The last call that you'll ever get is a call to come back home. Why do you think in our Bibles that we have the word regeneration if you've never been generated to begin with? To be reborn because you used to be with God in the beginning. To be renewed, to be revived because we had to be vived once before. So God is simply trying to take us back when Adam got out of place and lost his identity. When the power of the Holy Spirit comes, He's really not doing a new work. He's taken us back to establish what God began in the beginning. He's only taking us back. He's renewing. He's reviving. He is restoring. It's always the because God is taking us back to what He had already done from the beginning of time. He has finished all things from the beginning of time. And that's why many of our prayers are faithless, because we are asking God to do again what He has already called finished from the beginning. And so there's this thing of So when you understand God, you become connected back to your original purpose. Until you know who God is and who you are, you'll never know what you're called to do. Your identity is wrapped up in the identity of the Father. Why do you think that people who have the last name Smith were Smiths? If they would go back, they were coppersmiths. They worked with iron. They were silversmiths. It spoke of their profession. Their name was connected to purpose. See, in our society, we just snatch a name out of the clear blue because it sounds cute. Their names were connected to purpose. Moses was not just randomly chosen. The name Moses means drawn out of water. His greatest miracle was not the fact that he was found floating in a basket on the Nile River, but it was that he would take the children of Israel through the Red Sea and draw them out of water. It was prophetic of his destiny. Until you understand where you've come from, you don't even know where you're going. I wish I had time to go there, but just decide what you want. Decide what you want. And number two, write it down. Write it down. If a goal is not in writing, it's not a goal, because it'll drift away like a puff of smoke. You know, you ever seen a person with a cigarette and they can take and blow rings and stuff? I'm always fascinated by that. I must confess, I'm a secondhand smoker. I mean, it's one of the most economic ways if you really enjoy the smoke. I've never had to buy a pack of cigarettes. But the act of writing, it forces you to think. Whenever you write, it forces you to think. It forces you to concentrate. It forces you to choose what is more important to you and to your future. And so when you write down your goal, you will impress that into your subconscious mind, and then it goes to work 24 hours a day in order to work to bring that goal into reality. So write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down. The top 3% of earners in America, ironically, are the same 3% of people who wrote their goals. It's amazing. There's a power in writing it down. Number 3, set a deadline for your goal. Set a deadline for your goal. Set a deadline for your goal. Pick a reasonable time period and write down the date when you want to achieve it, because a deadline is a forcing system in your brain. How many of you know people that just can't seem to get stuff done until the last minute? There's something about the impetus of just last minute pressure. They can somehow get it done at the last minute. They can have months and months to do it, and it can boil down to weeks, and you know they got weeks to do it. And then when it's days, they still got days, and they'll be up all night nearly, the night before the thing is due. And somehow, miraculously, they have the power and the focus and the energy to stay up and finish the project and get it done because of the power of a deadline. When you put a deadline there, that's the thing that separates a dream from a goal. A goal is nothing but a dream with a deadline. With a deadline. With a deadline. Set a deadline to it. And understand this, that there are no unrealistic goals, but there are only unrealistic deadlines. I mean, you know, you can't be big today, 500 pounds, and then say, you know, tomorrow I'm going to be 250. It's not an unrealistic goal, but it is an unrealistic deadline. You can't do it by tomorrow. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Ladies, if you could go from 198 down to 118 by 7 o'clock on Friday night. Wouldn't that be wonderful? You know, you got stuff in your closet 3 or 4 sizes smaller than what you are now. You wanted to wear it to the function that's coming up, and you wrote that down as a goal. Write it down. Write it down. Set a deadline for your goal. Set a deadline. Number 4, make a list of everything that you can think of to possibly do to achieve your goal. Make a list of everything that you can think of that you could possibly do to achieve your goal. Henry Ford said that the biggest goal can be accomplished if you just break it down into enough small steps. And as a part of that process, you make a list of the obstacles that you will have to overcome, both external and internal, in order to achieve your goal. You make a list of the additional knowledge and skills that you'll need in order to achieve your goals. Make a list of the people whose cooperation and support that you will require in order to achieve your goal. And make a list of everything you can think of that you will have to do, and then add to this list as new tasks and new responsibilities occur to you. And keep writing until the list is complete. Here's number 5. Organize your list by both sequence and priority. Organize your list by both sequence and priority, because sequence requires that you decide what you need to do first and second and third and fourth and so on. Priority requires you to determine what is more important and what is less important. Some things are more important than others. Number 6, take action on your plan immediately. Take action on your plan immediately. Step out. Step out. Take the first step, then the second, then the third. It's always difficult to take the first step. Always difficult to take the first step. I mean, when a man sees a woman that he likes, it's so difficult for him to, well, some brothers, some people, they just look like they just immune. It's like if a lady blows them off, it's like it ain't nothing but a thing. They got another one over here. And they just, but there are some brothers like me. I didn't grow up with a player's mentality. And so the most difficult thing in the world for me would be to approach it and to just take the first step. Have you ever met somebody and you wanted to meet them somehow, but you were afraid to take the first step, and then they're gone, and then you go back to that place and you're hoping that maybe you'll just see them again? You may never ever see them, and then you're mad with yourself that you didn't take the step to give them your number or to get theirs. And because you didn't take the first step, because you didn't make the first step, no other connections are possible until you take the first step. Until you come out on the ground level. You cannot build a building on a second story. You can't. You just cannot build something on another level. You got to do the foundation work first. So take action immediately. Get going. Get busy. Move quickly. Because the difference between successes and failures in life is simply that winners take the the first step. There are two difficult processes to any task. Number one, getting started. Number two, getting finished. But half of your battle is already done if you just get started. And here's number 7. Do something every day that moves you in the direction of your major goal. Do something every day that moves you in the direction of your major goal. Do anything that moves you at least one step closer to the goal that is important to you at the time. When you do something every day that moves you in the direction of your goal, you develop momentum. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's just reading in the area of your goals, a biography of somebody that did it. That's moving yourself. I don't care whether it's writing a note to somebody, asking can you meet with somebody who could be a mentor to you in a particular area. Do something every day, not 5 days a week, not 6 days a week, every day. If it's about praying for this thing, if it's about writing out some ideas of the types of people that you're going to need to work with you, the types of position and the types of contacts that you'll need. Start writing out letters of invitation. Start writing thank you notes to potential customers, of folks that you already have relationship with. Do something every day moving you toward the major goals in your life. When you do that, it is momentum. If you got a goal of being an accomplished musician, practice that thing every day, a little bit every day, just something every day, every day, every day, every day. Let me just tell you this. God will always give you enough time in every day to do his will. God, by his own sovereign power, who is the Father of all time, who does not dwell in time himself. He dwells outside of time. He dwells in eternity. That's why he's the God that was, is, and is to come. He's outside of time. But the God who's outside of time always gives us enough time to do his will. God puts enough time for the busiest person on the top side of the earth to pray every day. He builds in time in your life every day to read his word. God builds in the time for you to worship him, to praise him. He has built the time in to do what is his will for your life. The question is, what did you do with the time that God allowed it for himself in your life? God builds that time into your life. God himself gives you the time. It would be unfair of God to will something for us and not give us the time to do it. As long as you have time, God will give you task. And so as long as you are on the top side of the earth, you realize there's a reason for my being alive. God will give you breath as long as you got purpose. The moment your purpose is fulfilled, you'll leave. Because I fought a good fight. I kept the faith and I finished my course. When you finish, the last thing, Jesus about to give up the ghost, 33 years old. He looks up to his Father and says, it is finished. God will give you enough time. They tried to kill him before the time came. They tried to kill him before the time came. And he said, it's not time yet. He would convey himself away in the multitude. They couldn't catch him. You can't die before your time when you're submitted to God. You cannot die before your time when you are submitted to God. One of the best scriptures in the Bible is Matthew 5:16 that says, let your light so shine that men might see your good works and glorify the Father who's in heaven. Do you know they are your works, your actions that you take, your stepping out that causes God to be glorified when other people look at your life? There's a little boy that went into a cathedral. He's standing in the cathedral admiring the beauty, the vastness of the great cathedral. And in this cathedral there were the stained glass windows, and he's seeing in pictorial form many of the highlights of events that happened in Scripture. And he's seeing the apostles, the saints, depicted in stained glass. And he overhears somebody ask, what is a saint? And this little boy in this grand cathedral, looking around, he said, a saint is someone who lets the light shine through. He got it from just observing the light that was coming through the saints in the stained glass. A saint is someone who lets the light shine through. When you let your light shine through, your light only shines through what you do, through the smile that you make, the compassion that you demonstrate by the kindness of your own heart. It's what you do. And God's waiting for us to step out into some areas because some folks have become discouraged because somebody gave you a B- on an idea. And some of you have sat on your giftings and your callings. And there's something that God has been stirring in you. You will give an account of everything that God placed on the inside of you. Every talent, every ability, every dream, every idea that was God-given. God's wondering, what are you waiting on? When is the opportune time? And here's a great question. There are some individuals in this place today, and the only reason that you've not fulfilled what God has told you to do is because you've been connected with some folks that should not be in your life. And nothing will change for you until you disconnect some relationships that you are unwilling to confront. I just hear God. I hear God's voice. There's some things you can be so encumbered with having to maintain so many different relationships with so many different people that you become encumbered. Your feet are tired with busy work that mean nothing toward your destiny and your purpose. And your time is zipped away, wasted away in frivolous conversation and fellowships, and your purpose lies limp and impotent in a wheelchair, waiting, crying, begging, saying, "Get me out, let me live." Something that is in you that is dormant, that the Master has already given the words of resurrection when he said, "Come forth." And when God gives you the word, come, everything, even if there is a withered hand, Jesus went to a man whose hand had atrophied, and that hand was withered, and Jesus said, "Stretch forth your hand." He told the man to do what he thought was impossible. And I'm just here to tell you that God's trying to tell some of you something that you think is impossible, but God has told you to do something. You don't know how you're going to do it. That's proof that it's God. May I just tell you, you ought to have enough faith to do something that involves God, because if it does not involve your faith, if it does not require faith, it insults God and it leaves him out. And the very thing that God has told you to step out, you've been shivering. You've touched the water and you saw somebody else get in and drown, lose everything that they had. And you've allowed the fear of what happened to them. You saw them get in a marriage and get hurt and wind up in divorce, and you're really afraid to open up your heart. You're afraid that if I really jump into this thing, I'm gonna mess up.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.